In today's video, we're going to take a look at one of the most powerful gaming laptops I have ever used. The OMEN MAX 16, a machine that's absolutely stacked with a 240Hz OLED display, liquid metal cooling, and an Nvidia GeForce RTX 5090 laptop GPU. A huge thank you to Nvidia and OMEN for sponsoring today's video. So let's take a look at what's included with the OMEN MAX 16. This is a 16-inch gaming laptop, and it's the bigger brother to the OMEN Transcend 14, which, to be honest, was probably one of my favorite gaming laptops that I've probably ever reviewed on this channel. I took a look at it last year, and I think it's the perfect blend between price to performance. You get an incredible OLED panel on that laptop, great GPU and CPU options, and it isn't too crazy priced considering how good it is for day-to-day tasks. But this is their higher end offering. It's got similar design architecture, just bigger in all aspects. It can house an Nvidia GeForce RTX 5090 laptop GPU. It's got Intel and AMD CPU variations for different configurations. You can spec it as low as an RTX 5070, but even when you look at the overall design, it's got way more fan intakes so you can get the most out of these higher end GPUs and push the FPS to its absolute limit. You can get this with a 240Hz OLED screen built into the laptop, giving you incredible color accuracy, which makes it perfect for both gaming and also creative tasks. A nice little blend right there. Inside of the box, you do also get a little accessories pack and also this huge power watt adapter to ensure that you can get the most out of these higher end GPUs that are built into these laptops. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the performance numbers that I got out of the OMEN MAX 16. Now, the unit I have been testing and running here is the RTX 5080 laptop GPU, not the flagship RTX 5090 variation, so the performance is slightly lower than the absolute top spec, but honestly, it's really impressive. First, let's take a look at Cyberpunk 2077. Running this game in ray-traced overdrive mode with absolutely everything maxed out, with DLSS 4 frame generation enabled, I was easily getting over 200 frames per second. Inside of the OMEN Gaming Hub, there are 4 presets that you can choose between: Eco, Balanced, Performance, and Unleashed. This gives you different power delivery and fan curves to the components within the laptop. You can use the shortcut function P on the keyboard to switch between these on the fly. Turning on Unleash mode does boost the overall performance from the laptop. You're looking at around 20 to 30 frames per second extra from my personal tests. And for comparison, so you understand what's happening with the frame generation, if we disable this, Cyberpunk was only able to run at around 50 to 60 frames per second, which is a huge difference compared to that 200 FPS with DLSS 4 enabled. The cool thing about this new generation of DLSS is you can dial in the exact amount or the multiplier of frame generation you would like. You can have it set to ×2 or even ×4. Even running this at a lesser rate, you could get Cyberpunk to hit easily over 100 to 120 FPS very consistently. Turning these settings down to low just to see the max output from the GPU, we were looking around 260 to 270 frames per second consistently while roaming around within the open world. Now, what makes these numbers possible is Nvidia's new DLSS 4, which stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. Essentially, it's an AI performance multiplier. Instead of brute forcing every single pixel the old-fashioned way, DLSS uses neural networks running on the GPU's tensor cores to be smart about how it renders. And this does 2 big things. First, it renders at a lower resolution for speed, whilst simultaneously upscaling that image using AI to give you higher resolution graphics, whilst also generating extra frames in between the real ones. Now, the coolest part about this multi-frame generation compared to the predecessor DLSS 3, that could only produce 1 extra frame per real one, whereas DLSS 4 can do up to 3 additional frames. That means you can literally see frame rates multiply 3 to 4 times over what the GPU would normally be able to produce. So in a ray trace heavy scene that normally would run at 30 FPS natively, DLSS 4 can push it well past 100 frames per second, and even in some titles exceeding well beyond 200 frames per second, which is insane for a gaming laptop. Which is exactly the results I seen with Fortnite. At 1440p with ultra graphic settings, this game comfortably ran above 120 to 140 frames per second. And if you drop the resolution down to 1080p and tweaked a few graphic settings to low and medium, you almost approach 300 frames per second. Very consistent and solid within the 250s. Now, obviously performance isn't just about how many frames per second you can get. System latency and input responsiveness is a huge factor. That's where Nvidia's Reflex 2 comes in, with a new feature called Frame Warp. Basically, it reduces input latency by warping the frame before it's displayed on screen, and it uses what your latest mouse input was to determine how it needs to manipulate that frame. It almost predicts what you're going to do next with the mouse and then displays it on the screen. It actually reduces overall latency and input latency down by 75%, which is crazy. And Reflex 2 is coming very soon to RTX 50 series products. Doom: The Dark Ages is a game that supports all of these brand new features, from Nvidia Reflex to Nvidia DLSS 4, and one that we haven't mentioned yet, which is DLSS Ray Reconstruction. But what DLSS Ray Reconstruction does is it uses path tracing within supported games to create much better results with the ray traced lighting, reflections, and shadows, making them more realistic. There's no grain issues, flickering, or smearing on the details. And compared to the old style of ray tracing with hand-tuned filters, this AI model trained on path tracing data creates more of a CGI film quality effect while still running smoothly. In terms of upgradability on the OMEN MAX 16, it's fairly straightforward. You remove all of the screws and then you're straight in. There's two NVMe SSD slots. One's already pre-installed with the provided NVMe SSD drive that you've spec'd the laptop with. This one has a 1TB drive already, but we can remove this heat shield here and obviously upgrade that drive if we wish. But there's also an expansion bay just below it right here that's super easy to access with a simple screw. It's already got a heat shield on it. You just throw it straight in and you're up and running. Now you do also have access to the DDR RAM right here. This also is upgradable if you want to go ahead and install more RAM than what you initially spec it with. And probably one of the coolest features of this laptop are the self-cleaning fans. So inside of the OMEN hub, you can initiate the self-cleaning, and essentially it uses a push and pull sort of method on the pressure on the fans to blow out any dust without you having to remove the back of it. So it almost has self-maintenance, so it's always running at its best. Do you note that the self-cleaning mode is only available on the Intel-powered SKUs? Which is quite a cool feature, because probably the biggest issue with fans in gaming PCs in general, or consoles, but particularly laptops, they're quite small, so they fill up with a lot of dust. You're transporting it about a lot in different environments, dusty rooms, hotel rooms, traveling or whatever. And then that obviously impedes the overall performance of your laptop. It will run louder, it will run hotter, and then you won't get the most out of the insane graphics card and CPU that you spec it with. On the topic of taking it on the go, I did do a trip overseas to Germany for Gamescom, where I took the OMEN MAX 16 as my main laptop for the trip to see how it handled tasks on battery. Surprisingly, I was able to game with the same presets off battery, albeit with a little bit lower FPS, but no crazy FPS drops like I was expecting or my usual experience from battery gaming on laptop devices. For productivity, I do like the larger keyboard. It has the inclusion of a number pad, which is something often sacrificed in gaming laptops, and the connectivity was well equipped with two USB Type A's, two Thunderbolt 4 ports, a headphone jack, HDMI 2.1, and Ethernet. But a super cool feature is the built-in 2.4 GHz wireless dongle for HyperX peripherals. This is OMEN's sister brand, and it's HP's own line of peripherals for mice, keyboard, and headsets that wirelessly connect to the laptop without occupying any of these USB ports like third-party accessories would. They just sync straight to your OMEN MAX 16 with the dedicated receiver inside of the laptop, which is a very streamlined user experience. Overall, the OMEN MAX 16 offers the perfect hybrid solution. It gives you the power that you need when working at your desktop, when you dock it and it's plugged into a power source, while still having the flexibility for on-the-go working and gaming, and the advantages of the much larger 16-inch display built into the laptop. Now, of course, it is a little bit on the bulkier side and thicker side compared to other laptop offerings in the marketplace, which is where you may prefer something like an OMEN Transcend 14 if you want a lighter weight solution, but its larger design obviously helps with its cooling capabilities and not bottlenecking the performance of that Nvidia GeForce RTX 5090 laptop GPU. All of the products will be linked down below in the video description, where you can learn more if you're interested in purchasing. And if you want to learn more about the OMEN Transcend 14, you should check out this video next, because if you like this, you'll like that.